There's one ocean.
There is 7.
One big
Can you
ocean.
name some of them?
Atlantic,
Atlantic,
Indian,
Arctic,
South.
Yeah.
South Ocean.
South Ocean. South Northeast.
Okay, so for this class,
My name's George.
we're going to talk about, we've got the Pacific, we've got the Atlantic, we've got the Indian, we've got the Arctic Ocean,
I don't see South.
and they like to call the ocean around Antarctica the Southern Ocean.
Did they just make that up?
No, that's an older term.
I've never heard it.
Yeah.
Can I get a pen?
They kind of don't teach kids the Southern Ocean one.
Never heard of the Southern Ocean.
I think that's part of the Arctic Ocean.
No, the Arctic is north. The Southern is south.
That's I believe because they're both very cold.
Yeah, they are very cold, but they don't call it, when they talk about Arctic Ocean, they're not talking about south, they're talking about the north one. If you were to take all the water in all the oceans, in all the rivers and lakes, even the groundwater,
That's a lot.
and put it together in a big ball, that's how big it would be. That's all the water that there is on the planet.
How tall is that though?
It's 800 miles tall.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of water.
Why would anybody even want to do that?
Some mathematicians at NASA made this. They thought it was a cool picture. And I agree. I think it is.
And I assume that's the fresh water right next to it.
That's the fresh water, including what's in glaciers. And this is what will really blow your mind. That right there is the fresh water that's not in glaciers. That's all the lakes, rivers, streams, and groundwater that there is on the planet. That little dot right there.
Isn't it the only?
That little dot is actually not so small.
I know that
It's
thing is huge.
40 miles on each side. It's a 40-mile ball of water, but still, it's tiny compared to the size of the planet.
There's choke water.
That includes all the water in all the Great Lakes, all the water in the Mississippi and the Amazon and the Nile and all those rivers.
That's wicked, Mr. Willis.
It's not very much water if you think about it, and all the groundwater.
Oh yeah.
All the water that's in the ground.
Is that in that one too?
In this little one. That's all the available fresh water there is. So you can see why there can be a water shortage.
No way.
There's not that much fresh water around.
How do they measure that?
That's a great question.
What do they do all
They have to get measurements from all over the planet on different things.
How long do you think it took them?
Yeah, it took them a while. Ask the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration scientists. It's a good question. I'm not sure how they got the measurements, but they got them.
Ask them.
Water is blue. Why? Why is that?
I thought the water was actually
Because it reflects the light.
Water's clear.
If you look at a little water up close, it's clear. But if light is going through a lot of water, what happens is, do y'all know the colors of the rainbow?
I do know.
Red, orange.
Roy G. Biv?
Yes, I remember that.
Now what happens is, as light goes through the water, the water absorbs these colors pretty well and leaves those colors, doesn't absorb them. And so that continues on through the water and comes up out of the water and hits your eyes and you see it. So it has to do with what types of light is absorbed.
What about green? Isn't some water green?
Well, usually the green that you see in water is because of algae that's living in the water. That's usually why you see water looking green. It's a good question. The ocean is divided up into several different divisions. And the majority of this section is memorizing all this stuff, which we're going to start to do now.
Let's do it.
There's a lot of words on here, and you have to know them all.
What?
So let's start with the ocean itself is known as the pelagic province. Can you say pelagic?
Pelagic.
All at the same time?
Pelagic.
Pelagic means open ocean. There are creatures, ocean creatures are called pelagic creatures.
To be honest, why don't they just say pelagic? I mean, why don't they just say open ocean?
It's a scientific name that goes back to the Greeks. It's an old term.
They got it done. They play too much.
Yeah. Now, the pelagic ocean can be divided up into two provinces, we call them. The Neritic province is near shore, over the shelf, over the continental shelf. And the Oceanic province is offshore, past the continental shelf. Now, every continent has a shelf that sticks out into the water some. And where we are, the shelf goes out about 80 miles. And so where we are, you got to go out about 80 miles before you get to the real deep water.
It's a struggle doing that.
Fishermen that really want to catch the big fish will go 80 miles out to what they call the Gulf Stream, and that's where the water is real deep to go fishing, because the biggest fish like the deeper, colder waters.
And that's in the Oceanic?
Yes, once you've gone out 80 miles from here, you're in the Oceanic province. Now, it's very interesting to know that you don't have to go that far if you're not here. Like if you go down to Miami, you only have to go a couple miles offshore to get to the Oceanic.
Same thing with the Bahamas.
So in the Bahamas too. So it's a lot steeper in some areas. The shelf is very gradual where we are, but there's steep shelves in different locations. So it just depends on where you are in the world. Some places have even shallower shelves than we do. In some places it's really steep. Off the west coast of the United States, the California coast, it's really steep. You go off 1 mile and you're in the deep trenches. Really deep. So, we call the Neritic, can you remember Neritic? Neritic is over the shelf and Oceanic is further out. So we got pelagic, Neritic, and Oceanic. You got that? Now let's talk about this word on the right, photic.
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis, that's exactly right. Photic means light. And the photic is where the light can penetrate. So if light can penetrate through the water, we call it the photic region. And if light cannot penetrate, we call it the aphotic region. So light will only go down about 200 meters. That's why it says 200 meters there.
Is that why the things only go down? Oh, never mind. Don't worry about what I just said.
All right. So light penetrates about 200 meters, and then after that it's dark. And you can't really see down here unless you have lights. Or you can see fish and jellyfish and things that glow. There's a lot of what we call bioluminescent creatures down there that make their own light. And there's a fish called a lanternfish that has a little headlight on it, so you can see.
I remember those.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Finding Nemo was one of them.
Nemo.
Yeah. And there's all fish will, especially jellyfish, will communicate by making light, making blinking light, and that's how they find their mate. And that's what it does. So, but anyway, it's completely dark below about 200 meters. So we call that the photic zone. Now we also call it the epipelagic zone.
What does epi mean?
Epi means above. So it's the above pelagic zone. Remember, pelagic is the whole ocean. The above pelagic zone is the highest zone of and the epipelagic zone, light can penetrate.
What does epi have to do with like an EpiPen? I've always wondered that.
So an EpiPen injects medicine through your epidermis. Your epidermis, epi means upper dermis. Your dermis is your skin.
Oh.
The epidermis means the upper part of your skin. So an EpiPen goes through the epidermis.
Oh.
There you go.
So confused.
Now you know.
Yeah, now I know.
And knowledge is power. G.I. Joe. Sorry, I got off track. Mesopelagic means the next lower one. Meso kind of has a root meaning middle pelagic. And that goes from 200 meters to 700 meters. Or 1,000 meters, somewhere in there. 700 to 1,000 is about...
So mesopelagic isn't
This.
photic, right?
Mesopelagic is aphotic.
Okay.
If you put A in front of a word, that means not. Not, no light. Aphotic, no light. Just like asexual means no
I
sex.
said it in my head, I swear I did.
You were thinking that, that's why I said it. Hey, you wanna?
We're connected.
Do we have to know the depths and stuff?
No, you won't have to know these numbers. That's a good question. I won't quiz you on the numbers, but just understand that Mesopelagic is the next deepest. And the reason why they cut off the Mesopelagic is it's a temperature gradient. At 10 degrees Celsius, they don't call it Mesopelagic anymore. When it gets colder, because the deeper you go, the colder it gets. You've probably experienced this if you've ever dove in a lake that's kind of deep. You notice it gets colder as you go further down?
It really does.
Even a deep swimming pool's like that, if it's not mixed up too much. So Mesopelagic is next, and then Bathypelagic is below that. Bathy is a Greek term meaning bottom.
Gosh, George.
Bathoscope. In many areas of the ocean don't go deeper than that. That's 1,000 meters. But a lot of them do go deeper, and we call that the abyssal pelagic. Have you ever heard of the deep abyss?
I have.
That's getting really deep. 4,000 meters, that's up to almost 3 miles deep.
Jesus Christ.
It's deep. But you can go even deeper
Do you
than
see
that.
it? Do you see it at that?
No, light only penetrates through the photic.
Oh yeah.
So light only will get this to 200 meters. So 4,000, no, that's dark.
It's just like black.
Yeah, it's black. Actually, below 200 is
Chill
black.
out, dude.
So all of this is black.
Chill out.
Like so black you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. I mean, there's no light. Unless you had a light.
That's great.
And a lot of those divers will carry lights with them. Now, normal diving scuba gear, though, doesn't even go below 200 meters.
So why
You
do
have to get extra special suits to go below that, and they have what's called a hard suit where the pressure won't squeeze your body. And then if you want to go really deep, if you want to get down here, you can't even wear a hard suit. You have to be in a submarine. In your normal submarines, like your nuclear submarines and things like that, they don't even go below about 1,000 meters.
Is it really that deep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get down this far, the pressure starts getting so great you have to have a specially built submarine that's real tough. And they're usually almost round or circular so that the pressure pushes on it evenly. And there's only a few subs that have ever been made that can go to the bottom.
And they aren't like self-propelled or anything. They have to be dropped down there.
On a tether, yeah.
So like that first submarine that went down there, like to the Mariana Trench, wasn't it just like a circle?
Yeah,
They just sit
it was like a big sphere, and they're
So
sitting.
how'd they get back up at the?
No, not that
Pull them
one.
back
It's
up.
older.
They're connected,
Oh Lord, that's crazy.
connected on a line. Yeah.
So if there's like if
Didn't
there's
the
like
window crack?
stuff
I
to
think a window did crack.
I think
help
they were
them
those first
propel,
ones.
then it would just like break.
Yeah, it's because the pressure is so much, it can break things. So
That's
you
like
gotta
at the
you
line.
gotta build it carefully. I think the one that was made by
Oh buddy.
James Cameron,
Mm-hmm.
the movie guy. I think his had propulsion on it.
But he's like really rich. isn't he?
Yeah, he spent millions.
Yeah, he probably had nothing else to do. I wouldn't.
He loves the deep, and of course he made the movie Titanic, and he was down there filming a lot. And for that movie, they invented all sorts of contraptions to ride around with cameras and film that sunken ship. And he used some of that technology to make his.
Was he involved in that whole thing where they went and found the Titanic?
He didn't find it, but once they found it, he went out there and he made that movie. Yeah.
But that was the actual Titanic?
There's a lot of
Like, where they were
pictures.
diving and stuff?
A lot of pictures in that movie are from the actual Titanic. Divers have never been down there; it's too deep.
Really?
They send ROVs down. Yeah.
And now I know what an RV is. So.
There you go. Okay, so we got to memorize this: epipelagic, mesopelagic, bathypelagic, abyssal pelagic, hadopelagic, photic, aphotic, pelagic, neritic, and oceanic. There's a lot of words there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you and your partners a few minutes, and I want you to quiz each other on this. And then I'm going to ask y'all questions about this for marine biography points. So let's take 5 minutes and try to memorize this and quiz each other
But
on
we
it.
don't have to learn that other stuff.
Lock it.
Like,
You my partner?
No, we're going to get the other stuff after we get this. Okay? 5 minutes
I don't
and
have
then
a group,
biography
man.
questions over this.
I don't have a group.
You're memorizing it now. Why don't you get with Zach
What up,
or Carson? Ask each other to quiz you on this.
Alright, give me right.
Me and Will do not want
and
you.
then the just
You're not cool enough to be in our group. Zach, you could be in our group, yeah.
No, man, Zach's my group. Get away.
Yeah. No. You pull H girls, right?
No, you're, well, we have like.
Alright, the
Yeah,
picture
right.
wait, Zach, where's the picture?
This one's got 3.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.